So what I'm going to talk about today is predictive programming. So this is this idea that normally people talk about it in the context of a film set in the future, and it foreshadows events that the big club, the cabal, the mafia gangs, crime families have got planned. And the idea of it is that obviously people will be more likely to accept what's being presented to them if these events have been foreshadowed previously in films. Now, it's not just films that contain predictive programming. And what I'm going to talk about today is predictive programming in the context of mind control, MK Ultra, presented in two books. I'm going to talk about those two books. So I know I've got quite a wide ranging audience in terms of knowledge. So just to explain what MK Ultra is. So this is actually just off Wikipedia. So, this is stuff that they kind of freely admit to. So Project MK Ultra, MK standing for mind control, was an illegal human experiment program designed and undertaken by the CIA in America to develop procedures and identify drugs that could be used during interrogations to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. It began in 1953 and was halted in 1973. MK Ultra used numerous methods to manipulate its subjects' mental states and brain functions, such as drugs like LSD and other electroshocks, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, verbal sexual abuse, torture. So it wasn't just the American government that did this, the Canadian government did it too, and they fessed up to it, and they paid sizable compensation to the people that they subjected to MK Ultra. You can check that yourself. Maybe the best thing to do for people who are doubtful is actually to check these sources themselves. So I think the second thing to say is that mind control, these MK Ultra programs, they've also been used to create so-called Manchurian candidates. This term actually came from another novel, not the one that or the ones that I'm going to talk about, but basically you brainwash somebody and you convince them to go and kill a political figure or somebody else that you want to get rid of if you're part of the big club. So this obviously has connections with false flag events. So some false flags, no one dies. Other false flags, there are deaths, but the culprit, the identity of the culprit, or the reasoning why the culprit did it is obviously hidden. So what I'm saying here is that mind control is being used, or has been used in the past, to create Manchurian candidates who carry out false flag events, terror events, basically, and then they're blamed on somebody else to try to get a problem reaction solution, divide and rule operation going, which then the big club can exploit. So I'm not even going to bother to, obviously this is very, very topical at the moment, particularly with the UK. If there are people being killed, you can bet your bottom dollar that these people have been mind controlled. And it's all about, as I say, trying to create internal unrest, setting Group A against Group B, and then the government comes in with the solution. But you know all of that. So what I'm going to talk about next is two books that you might not be familiar with, that do contain predictive programming with regard to MK Ultra. Right, both of these books were written by an English bloke called Ian Fleming. So again, I'm just going to use an establishment source here, so from Wikipedia. So Fleming came from a wealthy family connected to the merchant bank Robert Fleming and Co, and his father was a member of Parliament for Henley from 1910 until his death on the Western Front in 1917. Fleming was educated at Eton and Sandhurst. before attending the universities of Munich and Geneva. Later on, he worked for the British Naval Intelligence Division, so he was a spy during World War II. He also took part in Operation Goldeneye, which was, it says here, an Allied stay-behind plan during World War II to monitor Spain after a possible alliance between General Franco and the Axis powers, and to undertake sabotage operations. So obviously the books are James Bond novels. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is The Man with the Golden Gun. So for the first chapter, well, first two chapters, basically describes how James Bond is brainwashed. He's apprehended by the Russians when he's out in Japan, doing some terrorism as part of the British government, because that's basically what James Bond does. If you actually really want to understand James Bond works for Spectre, and Spectre is the British government, and they just try to create order out of chaos. Basically, that's what this is about. Anyway, in this book, first two chapters, it describes how Bond is apprehended by the Soviets, and what the Soviets do is subject Bond to mind control. And then basically Bond is programmed to kill M. Fortunately, in the novel, it doesn't happen because somebody spots that he's not acting normally. He has been programmed psychologically, and he's deprogrammed, and the book talks about that. The second book where mind control is featured is Moonraker. So in the book, the villain is this guy called Hugo Drax, and he has minions who are these attractive women, and they're kind of holed up in some place in the Alps. And the book goes into quite a bit of detail describing how these women have become mind controlled into like acting as Manchurian candidates. And a lot of it involves neuro-linguistic programming, so they're forced to listen to brainwashing just before they go to sleep, and that's described in this book. So basically, what do I think? I suppose the relevance to this, one more time, is most of the kind of chaos that's happening at the moment is not authentic, it's not grassroots, it's being created by the British intelligence agencies and the British government, and the goal of it is to create divide and rule. So order out of chaos, problem, reaction, solution. And some of the fake events do actually involve real casualties, and the people who are doing the casualties are either mercenaries or they're people who are vulnerable to mind control. I think as a positive, I don't have to worry about mind control, because I think for the people that saw through Divot 91, not everybody can be hypnotized and manipulated. And so that's, but there are like low intelligence people who are more vulnerable to it, and they can be programmed by the establishment using these various mind control techniques. And obviously I think other people have talked about this in the past, that children born into these elite families, that they're subjected to all sorts of horrible things that I won't go into, traumatizing events. So that's helping them to become programmed assets. So yeah, mind control, it definitely exists, but it only works, I would say, on a minority of people. So that's all I want to say today. So God bless.